Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's stream. I am really excited to be with you guys tonight. We are actually going to be trying something different. So tonight we're not going to be playing any games. We're not going to be doing reviews of stuff. We're not going to be doing anything like that. We're just going to be chatting. So if you're familiar with the channel, you've probably heard me say it a few times, especially at the start of my videos, that I started streaming in order to practice my public speaking. And it was pointed out to me by one of my friends that it's like, well, yes, I am losing a lot of times, playing my games, and I'm chatting back and forth, and I'm going through different things, and I'm doing stuff. I'm not getting a lot of opportunity to just talk and talk freely and build the muscle memory for this kind of thing. So this is me testing out this for the first time tonight, where I just want to talk about my day, talk about some interesting things that happened, and I do give some people some advice for different things that are going on. So I'm hoping you'll join me tonight. I'm hoping you'll have a bit of a laugh with me. Please feel free, interact in the chat, ask me anything that you want to ask. So as a background, I've actually been working in IT for close to 18 years. I started off as one of those help desk monkeys where I just answered 70 plus calls a day. 10-minute limit on the phone calls, just, hello, how can I help you? Move on. Quick log of a ticket. If I can't fix it in 5 minutes, get it to the next person. It was mind-numbing, and it was boring, and it was terrible. But I put my time in. I paid my dues. I worked my way up. I started building up my reputation. I got into tier 2. That was the desk side. I got to actually go physically to people's desks and talk to them and interact with them. Get to have a bit more of a laugh, build those relationships. This is where I like to think that I really started coming to my own, was building those relationships with people to the point where people wanted to come, and they didn't want to go to IT, they wanted to come to Mr. J. They wanted me to help them out. Obviously, I didn't come to Mr. J back at those times, honestly. I was happy they called me anything. But it was great. I started building up those relationships, those kind of key things that allowed me to know what people were doing with their day. It allowed me to know, like, hey, that sales guy really doesn't care about the Excel spreadsheet, but that PowerPoint, man, oh man, does he know that inside out. And those finance people, yeah, no, if they have open PowerPoint on their machine, that would be a miracle. But Excel, wow, you just knew what to do there. And it really helped me get insight into different things. But as time goes on, I keep building my career, I keep getting technically better. I do some stint as, a high-level server guy. I do a lot of tier 3 kind of stuff. And then I'm in Canada. So that's where I'm currently based. So for everyone not aware, I am based in British Columbia in Canada. I absolutely love it here. Weather is fantastic. Come visit. You'll love it. I can guarantee it. You'll want to move out here. Maybe wait till the pandemic is over, sure, but definitely. If it's not on your bucket list, just put it here. I came out here on a 2-week vacation and have never looked back. That's a detour. So, everyone always told me that it's like, hey, if you move across the world, you're basically going to be stepping 3 years back, in your career. It's wherever you were, go backwards 3 years, and that's where you're going to end up again. And that is quite literally exactly what happened to me. I moved out to Canada. I was a server technician, tier 3, highly respected in Ireland when I left there. And I came out here, and I was immediately back to tier 2. My resume didn't mean shit, my qualifications didn't mean crap, and the places that I worked had no relevance out here. And I don't care what anybody says, your reputation is everything. So if you move to another country, be prepared. It is a step back in your career unless you're doing a transfer within a company, and that's just how it is. At least in IT, that is just how it is. But I got lucky. This is where my story really begins. I got lucky because even though I took a step back, even though I was working for a company as a desk side technician, I ended up at this great little company. It was a little managed service provider. For those of you not aware, managed service providers are basically outsourced IT. And I realized that as soon as anyone says outsourced IT, people immediately start thinking, help desk in India, and bad accents, and all that stuff. This was very personalized, very desk side oriented, supporting local businesses that were too small to have their own IT. And so I was one of those guys. I was supporting that, and I got to experience, so much more. I had always been internal IT at that point, and this was my first opportunity to really see it from IT having a value. Someone wanted to actually pay for my time. So when I showed up on someone's desktop, they knew they were paying for my time. And it wasn't just a salary and they could boss me around and get me to do all sorts of crazy stuff. It's like, no, my time was suddenly valuable. And it made me really appreciate IT all the more. So how valuable that is to the company, right? Every time you're working on your computer in your office, if you're thinking, man, I haven't had a problem with my computer in a long time, that is a sign of a fantastic IT department. And think about how valuable that is. Everyone underestimates the value of their own time, but just being able to work, being able to go through your day without any issues is so productive. And that means that people who are billable resources, lawyers especially, can bill $1,000 a day. A graphics design artist who's on a tight deadline, his machine goes down, and that's thousands upon thousands of dollars in projects, right? Like, uptime is your most valuable commodity in IT. I started to really experience that and get to look through that. And because it was a small company at the time, I also got to really contribute to the culture. We knew everybody knew everybody. We got to do so much fun stuff together, and we felt like a very tight knit group working together for a common goal because it was such a small company. At that point, I was employee number 9. Like, that was how small it was, and we were just off to the races. We started doing well. The company started growing before I knew it. Before I'd been there a year, we were at 12. It kept growing and it kept growing organically. I was doing really well. Our boss was really chill and relaxed. He had basically run the business for about 5 years. Like, at one point where it was just him and one other guy, and he never knew anything technical. He basically just could charm the pants off anyone. And that was how he made it through IT. He would basically show up and say, "Oh, you've got a problem?" And he would sweet talk them for like 2 hours, and he wouldn't fix their problem but what he did was he bought time for his technical guy to show up. And they loved him, and it worked. And, he taught me that valuable lesson. You don't have to be the most technical guy in the room. You just have to be really well liked and not waste your time too much. It's okay to waste your time a little, but it wasn't okay to waste your time too much. So I'm working for this company, I'm going through stuff, and I'm working my way through, and I'm just putting my head down, and I'm doing my job, and I'm doing my job, and I'm doing my job. And lo and behold, there's an incident. So the way the company structure worked was there was the owner, there was the manager of operations, and then there was the team lead, and then there was me. So the team lead had a lot of responsibilities. He'd assign out tickets, he'd kind of balance the workload, he'd assign clients, all that lovely fun stuff to basically, just keep the wheels turning, keep the operations going, keep things moving along. And he wasn't very good at it. I'm trying to be very polite. No, screw being polite. He was shit. He was just terrible at it. He was a bad fit kind of thing because he just couldn't get his head wrapped around all the moving parts. He didn't really want to know about what we were doing. He just wanted what was on his plate to be off his plate to someone else. Part of the role was he'd get different responsibilities, and one day we had this major incident. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but lo and behold, it was a catastrophic thing for the company that, I ended up working like a 100-hour week, so that most of the people in the company, we were doing everything we can. I had my first experience with Bitcoin, which was very fun, so that will give you a bit of a hint as to what might have happened. But things settled down, a little bit of time goes by, and I was always an early bird, and I would be the first in the office. And I remember I'd come in one day, and not only was not the team lead, but his boss, the manager, and the owner, they were both there. And that was really rare. That was very, very rare. They would normally, I'd be in there at 7:30 or so. Earliest that they'd normally be in would be 8 o'clock, maybe 8:30. But they were both there right when I walked in. Now, my team lead, he'd normally show up between 8 and 8:30. So I had a sense that something might be going on. I was kind of like, I'm gonna just put my head down. It's none of my business, as they said. On the whole, owner comes up a little bit later, taps me on the shoulder. It's like, hey John, just any chance you could, just grab a cup of coffee for a little bit? It's like maybe just anything that you take care of, like just go grab breakfast. Like, totally understand. Totally understand. Okay, off I go. And I take off, bring my laptop with me, and I go and I work in a Starbucks for like the next hour. Get a message from my boss, and he says, it's like, hey, yeah, you said come back. Turns out I actually wasn't. I ran into the guy in the hallway, but the team lead, he didn't want to say anything on the way out. He just saluted, went on his way, went home, never heard from him again. Hope you're doing well, bud. Really do hope that you've had a successful career since. I know that place wasn't right for you, but no reason that you can't still have a very successful career. I know you would hopefully have found niche since then. Moving back. When I was at the Starbucks, though, it wasn't hard to tell what was going on. It was pretty easy to tell what was going on. So I decided, hey, this is going to be a major impact. This is going to totally disrupt our day. This is going to do a whole lot of stuff. So I looked at my schedule, looked at all the jobs I had, and I started sending emails. I started scheduling stuff. I started moving my calendar around, and I basically pushed as much as I could to the afternoon. Took care of a lot of stuff. Boss calls me, tells me, hey, you can come back now, and I immediately come back, put my laptop down, walk into his office, and I tell him right away, it's like, hey, I got your back. I moved all my stuff from calendar for the first half of the day. I'll cover the team lead. I'll take care of that. I'll just, I used to cover guy when he was on vacation anyway. It wasn't a big deal, but I took that initiative, and I could see the relief on my manager's face. I could just see him be like, oh, thank goodness. Okay, that's great. And I told him, it's like, listen, I've rearranged my schedule for next 2 weeks. You have to do a couple of hours each afternoon at a couple of places that I was responsible for, but I could bounce stuff around, I can move stuff around, I can take care of it. Okay? Great. We're going through that. Lo and behold, later that day, they advertised, they say to all of us, hey, you saw what happened, it's clear what happened here, you know what's going on, we're obviously going to be looking for a new person. I go home that day, I talk to my now wife, tell her what's happened, and she looks at me and it's like, so you're going to be applying for that, right? And I'm like, yeah, I probably am. And I built up enough goodwill in that company that all of my peers, they knew I was going for it. And I didn't say outright I was going for it unless I was asked. I didn't advertise it. I didn't try and blackmail it. I know a lot of people use that tactic where they make it very, very public. I'm going for that role. I'm actually going for it. I want that role. I want that so bad, right? And it kind of psychologically damages other people who want to go for that role because suddenly they feel like, man, I've been competing against him, and he's a really great guy, and I wanted to have it. But no, I kept it private. People asked me, I was honest. But lo and behold, everyone kind of knew that I was going to be going for it, and I actually got told later on by the manager, not the owner, but the manager below. I got told by him later on that some people had come up to him confidentially and said, if you don't give it to John, I'm probably gonna walk because John deserves it. He absolutely should be getting it. So we go through it, and I make a really good case for it. So I'm gonna make up numbers here just for the sake of this. I'm not gonna give out salaries or anything, but at one point I was earning, like I said, just making up numbers, but I was earning 50K. And I look at it and I say, it's great. So here's my condition. If you want me to do the role, I want to do it for 60,000, which is at the time was a completely reasonable amount of money for the role. I had done my research. I knew what it was worth. I knew what I was worth. That was the most important thing. I knew what I was worth because as a company, they'd been building me out by the hour, so I knew what my time was actually worth at that junction time. And I knew I was making them a very, very good offer. I knew that, it was fair to them. It was fair to me where I was in my life. And I knew that it was fair, but I made them a deal. I told them, you're taking a chance on me. You're taking a valid chance to say, I want to come in. I want to do this role that I have no experience with. I have no leadership experience before this. I have no management experience before this. But I know I can do a good job, and let me prove it to you for a year. So for a year, I'll stay at my current 50,000, and in 1 year, you either say, John, you did great, the role is yours permanently, and here's your 60K to go along with it, or you say, nope, not working out, I go back to being technical. Up until that point, I had a lot of skills and expertise being technical. I wasn't worried about needing to go back to it. I'll work through the year. I am doing my job. I'm doing really well. I am committed full time to it. I actually do. As far as I'm concerned, I did a great job. So good, in fact, that they promoted me from a team lead to a service manager role within 6 months. Okay, so it wasn't even a year that it had gone through. They actually went through a 6-month period. They gave me a 5. They bumped me up to 55. And I was like, cool. I really appreciate that. That was fantastic. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And I said, thank you. And I turned around to my manager at that time and said, that's great. I really appreciate the vote of confidence. I was clear before it. I want 60K to this job. That was the minimum I wanted for this. Yeah, I do actually work in IT. It's been at it for about 18 years or so now. How about yourself? Sorry, I'm gonna say, took me a minute to figure out your username. Unreal Gaming. How long have you been in IT? Or do you even work in IT? I worked my way up, went through this, started working with it for a while. Yeah, I know. You know what? There's actually a funny story about this. I will get to the ponytail, I promise, but this actually has nothing to do with IT. This has everything to do with COVID and Make-A-Wish. So, Blimey, I will tell you that story. Yeah. You're a chef now. You went from IT to being a chef. That is quite the jump. I'm impressed. Like, even the hours would be completely different unless you were working the night shift. Good for you. How did you make that transition, if you don't mind me asking? So as we're going through there, another 6 months go by. I've now been in that role for a year, and I had this premonition. I knew I had this meeting coming up. They took me to a nice steakhouse. It's like they're sitting me down. It's like, okay, great. We're going to talk to him, and we're going to go through all this stuff. And yeah, it was exactly what I was expecting, but everything that I hoped it would be. So when we went to that steakhouse, we sat down, and they were like, "So Jay, love what you're doing. You're doing a great job. We really appreciate everything. You took everything that you wanted to have to heart. You're doing this, you're doing that. You made all these improvements." And I came with all the things that were better over the last year. I came with records of the achievements that we'd had. We'd actually grown. When I took over that role, we had 14 people. And at that point, we had 22. So it was a huge jump. I don't hear a lot of people say that they actually enjoy the pressure of a role. Typically, I get a lot of people saying in IT that, they can't stand the pressure. So that is very interesting to me, that you went from what a lot of people would consider like in IT being a high pressure role, depending on where you are and what kind of work you're doing. So saying that you went from a high pressure role to a higher pressure role and you enjoyed that pressure more, that's pretty interesting, man. It's, I give you credit for that. Not a lot of people could probably pull that off. What kind of, obviously I'd be really curious to know, what kind of, food are you kind of making? Are you in a tell me about your restaurant, really. More about it. So there I am. I'm sitting in that steakhouse, conveniently enough. It's coming up with the blood, and the owner, he turned around to me, he's like, John, you know what? You've done great. We're really happy. We want to give you another raise. And I'm like, great. Okay, this is what I was hoping for. This is like they're gonna say, great. Here's another 5,000, and you're gonna get to be, you're gonna hit that 60K mark. That is what I said before. And again, reminder, this is made up numbers, so it's not actual. He turns around to me and it's like, yep, we're gonna raise your salary by this percentage and this is what we worked out. And yeah, the raise, like, I asked flat out, it's like, monetarily speaking, how much more is it? And they're like, it will be $4,500 more. And I remember looking at my manager, so not the owner, but my manager, who I had a really close relationship with. And I remember looking at him and it's like, so in total, my take home before bonuses, incentives, all that, is going to be $59,500. And I really emphasized the $500. And he just looks, he gave me that knowing look. And it's like, yep. This owner is going to be offering you $500 less than what you had, originally said you did the role for. And I didn't make the mistake that a lot of people make. A lot of people are kind of like, they'd argue it, they'd labor it, they'd like go back and forth, and I recognized the move for what it was. It was a power play to say, you don't get to make the financial decisions, I do. And I know what you want, and I'm making this power play, and I'm going to offer you $500 less. And I remember just thinking to myself, all right. If I keep moving up in this company, that's how this is going to be. That guy is always going to be the one with his hands on the purse string. And he wasn't, like, I'm not going to say that he was frugal and penny pinching or anything like that, but it was very, very clear. He controlled the game. He controlled that, and he was going to make it very, very clear. He was the guy in control. So, I smile, big cheeky grin. I said, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Shook their hands, we went back to work. That night, my LinkedIn was up to date. I was, putting it in there. I used it as an excuse pretty much to say, it's like, hey, you know what, you changed my job title, you give me more responsibilities. Now I'm going to go and update my LinkedIn. That's something that I haven't done all year, despite the promotion that you gave me. Well, I'm going to do it tonight. I'm going to make sure my LinkedIn's up to date. And I can tell you, my resume was out the door. It was flying out the door. And I wasn't, going for absolutely anything. I was being selective, It's at the time, even though I had been stiff 500, it wasn't like game breaking. I was making good money for where I was at. I was, comfortable with my situation. My finances were under control. I could afford to be picky with the job that I wanted. But lo and behold, 2 months later, I'm interviewing for a place. It goes really well. They make me an offer. And they actually make me an offer for 75. And I'm like, fantastic. This is a good company. This is a step up. Now, funnily enough, if you were to ever actually find my LinkedIn and actually look at, the progression, I went to team lead, to service manager, to team lead. And a lot of people, like, it's come up in like other interviews that I've had today. It's like, so what happened here? It's like, well, that company was very liberal with their job titles. Sometimes you get trapped where people give you this really high-end job title. Right? I see it all the time where it's like, oh yeah, we want you to be the director of IT operations. And you actually look at the responsibility and it's like, this isn't director. This is barely even manager. Like, in a lot of places, this might be team lead. But what happens is you end up in a role, and maybe you come into a role and it's like a proper job title to start, but then they keep reorging and they keep changing your job title, and suddenly before you know it, you've got this highfalutin job title with these low-level responsibilities. But what happens is you're trapped if you buy into it, because what happens is you go looking for the jobs and you're at this, like your job title says you're at this level, right? And so you go looking for the job levels this level, but your experience is down here, so you can't get those jobs. But you're trapped up here, and if you don't have that mindset to say, I can go this way, I can come down here to this job work that matches my responsibilities, you're stuck. And suddenly this is the only place that will keep you at this level, even though you could make more money and be getting more experience, if you just let go of your job title. Anyway, we're going through, and I was loyal to this company. I'm still loyal to them. Like, I still have a soft spot in my heart for this company. And I go through, and, I'm there, and I get this offer, and I'm like, I want to stay with these guys. I want to stay where I am because they put their faith in me. They gave me the chance to be a team lead. They gave me a chance to be a manager. And they've been giving me the opportunities to try new things and to go out there and do new things and be able to actually work on my craft to grow. And yes, I might get that same experience somewhere else, but that's an unknown. I might be going somewhere and they might have a very, very strict box. I can't do anything inside that box. It was an unknown. And I was loyal to these guys, and I was like, I will give these guys a hometown discount. But I went to them for $60 before. I've now got an offer for $75. They wanted to shut me $500. Now they want to keep me. Now I'm gonna want a big jump. I want them, I'll take a hometown discount. And I had in my head that it's like I would probably stay there for 67.5. That was my mental thing, where it's like if they could come halfway, I would stay with them. Sit down, go through my offer, go through that. I find out later on, my manager, he fought really hard. He actually wanted to not only just, offer me a raise to try and keep me, he wanted to actually match it. He wanted to try and match the offer, and the owner was just like, nope, we're done. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to deal with people going somewhere else and looking for more money. Right? No. It'll cost too much money. It's not worth it. Let go. We'll find someone else. Now, at that point, because I'd worked my way up through the ranks, I had taken on multiple hats in the company. That, when you looked at it from an objective lens, I'd been arguing for a long time that it's like there was too much on me at that time anyway, and we needed to divest my role. There needed to be like a junior person to come in to take over one element of the job that was time consuming and monotonous, but was, very vital to what we did, and then I could focus on the management side. So it's like, I'd been arguing that for a while, they had been pushing back, saying, no, can't afford it. I couldn't see the finances at that point, so I was like, okay, yeah, no. And I knew what target I had to hit to get that person, but we weren't there yet. Anyway, I went in, told him I had this offer for $75. My manager wanted to keep me. Owner was like, nope. Cut the ties, shook my hand. John, sorry to have you go. Really, appreciate it. Really appreciate your time. It's like, okay. We're gonna move on. Started a new chapter, right? Did a lot of interesting stuff. We moved on. Lo and behold, that company had to hire 2 people to backfill me. One of them came in, and he wanted, 65, which I believe they gave him. Like I said, I'm making up a lot of numbers here. I'm like, this is meant to be a parallel to say it's like, I don't know the exact number. I know it was more than they were paying me, less than what I had asked for. So what was really interesting was they suddenly, like, that person came in and they were like, no, I'm not doing that level menial task. No, just flat out, you need to hire someone else for that. So they ended up having to replace me with 2 people, which cost them way more money. Time goes on. I always got a laugh out of that. It's I joked around to say it's like them not giving me $500, which to them was nothing. To them that was one guy in an afternoon would make that much money. It was pittance, really. For them to turn around and say, hey, $500, we're not going to do that because we want to make a power play. Ended up costing them, a seasoned employee who had been incredibly loyal. It cost them now, instead of paying one salary at a lower range, they were paying two salaries at significantly higher ranges in order to do the work that I've been doing, that I was willing to do, all because of $500. And it really makes you like things like, think long term when you're doing those kind of decisions, right? Do you really want to be the guy who says, I'm going to make a power play here because $500 is, key to that? And that's what's going to be the difference. That's what's going to, tell him, I'm the boss. It's really not worth it. It's really not. So years have gone by since then. It's been, I think I worked it out. It's been just about 6 years, a little over 6 years now since that happened. And I've had a couple of different jobs since then. I've been in my job right now, which is actually a competitor. There's just on a much bigger scale, and I'm doing really well. I'm doing fantastically. This company had been doing the thing where it's like, hey, they had promoted people within the same role, given them really high-end job titles. And, I stayed in touch with a lot of people there. Like I said, we were very tight-knit. I'm still, I played games with some of them, I played Dungeons and Dragons with some of them. A lot of them have moved on since then, but I stayed in touch because they were good, honest, hard-working people, and they're hard to find. I had told, hey, the guy who had come in to replace me was actually leaving. And would I be interested in coming back? Yeah. $500 can make a hell of a difference sometimes. Because when I met with him today, and he asked me what my salary expectation would be to come back, I'm not gonna lie, I had an idea in my head as to what number he'd be willing to go for. And I knew in my head that for me to get over that, get over what had happened before, to move past that situation, it was going to cost him a whole lot more than he was willing to pay. And it really emphasized that lesson for me, that you can work for a great place. You can be an owner of a great place, and you can be a boss of a great place. And you can have great benefits, great people. Just my face, unfortunately, kind of decayed. There's no scarring or anything like that. I've got a pretty bad goatee, but there's unfortunately nothing fancy under the mask. It really led me to kind of realize that if you want to make a power play, really make it for a significant amount of money. Don't make it for something that your guy knows you can make in an afternoon, because it will come back and haunt you. And I know from my skills right now, I know exactly where they're at business-wise, I know exactly what they're doing, and I know very well what they actually really do need to kind of keep moving true on that. And yeah, it's not $500, and they would have had me for a long time, and I would have been a great employee for them. Moral of the story, power play ain't worth it. Power plays ain't worth it. And kind of came R6. Thank you so much for jumping in. Funnily enough, this mask is 3D printed. I'm a bit of a hobbyist when it comes to 3D printing, so I've got a little one back there. Before I started streaming, I actually printed it out, and I was just like, I just think that looks really cool. And when I started streaming, I was looking for something that might be a bit unique, that might be a bit kind of flavorful, as well as give me just a little shade of anonymity. Now, obviously, I know who knows me is going to recognize me, but you know, if you don't know me per se, it might be a little harder to recognize me. So I thought, let's do something. We can do a couple of different things, and it gives me a little bit of something. You know, forgive me, my cat is trying to jump on my PC. He has a very great habit of he will jump up onto the top of my PC and his foot will just immediately hit the power button and shut me down. So that's always great fun when you're in the middle of doing stuff and he decides to shut down your PC. So I'm trying to get better at catching him. His name is Finn. He is a jerk, but I love him. He's mine. Unreal Gaming, a little bit before, he asked about the ponytail, so funnily enough, I do not normally keep a ponytail, although I can't really say that given that I've had it for over a year now. I was working one day and we're based here in BC, and we were going through stuff. It was in COVID lockdown and we were having a team meeting, and we had been announced earlier that day that barbers were allowed to reopen, so people could go and get haircuts again. And this was about 2 months after the pandemic began, and that's normally my schedule for it. I was delayed, and I said in the meeting, it's like, yeah, no, I am really, really looking forward to going to a barber again. And one of my team members turned around and said, oh man, I would pay money to see John with a top knot. So, me never being great at turning down a challenge, turned around and said to him, how much? And he threw out a number, and I was like, I'll make you a deal. If you can raise $200 to be donated to Make-A-Wish, I will grow my hair to have a top knot. And before the end of that call, they had gathered 150. I gave them a week. At the end of the week, they had $300 raised for Make-A-Wish. And at that point, there was no backing down. No, I'd given my word. They donated at my Make-A-Wish. They all got their nice little tax receipts. Make-A-Wish is my charity of choice. I absolutely love what they do. I try and take part all the time. If you haven't heard of them, they are fantastic. I highly, highly recommend it. It's, give them a chance. Give them a look. Read some of their stories from the kids that they send off on, which is phenomenal. Anyway, they raised that money, they donated, and I started growing my hair. And it's been a year since then. It's been consistently growing. I get the sides trimmed just to kind of like keep it somewhat neat, because I do have a wife and I would like to not be divorced by her for having absolutely atrocious hair. So I do, keep the sides trimmed, and most of the time it's kept in a ponytail. But now it's become a running joke in my company is, hey, when we're all back in the office, when we get to have like our Christmas party or summer party, there's actually going to be an auction as to who gets to cut my hair off. My wife has graciously agreed that, someone else gets to, cut it off as long as a certain amount of money is raised. But it's basically, this has become my Make-A-Wish ponytail. So, very good chance that we actually, get that on video, and I might put it up here as well. But I'm really excited for that when it does come back. We still got a while to go. It's, it might not even be this year. I would personally love it if I could grow it to Dalmatian length. Now that is 12 inches, if I'm not mistaken, in BC. So I have a while to go for that. But I would love to be able to get my hair to a point where I could actually donate it. They'd have to probably pick out all the gray hairs that I've got in here. But I would love to get to that point, be able to, just go, have a laugh, raise some good money for Make-A-Wish, probably do it either as an auction or, a raffle or something like that. And just have fun with it. Everyone's working remotely these days, or at least a lot of people are working remotely these days. If you're an essential worker and you're not working remotely, thank you very much for the things that you do. There was a lot of appreciation given for you at the start, and a lot less is being given now. What you're doing is phenomenal. Thank you very much for that. Please keep up the good work, and please feel free to tell people they're being a dick when they're being a dick, because they deserve it, and you're an awesome person for doing what you do. Anyway, right now, everyone's working remotely. So many people, like, I can't tell you the amount of meetings that I've been on where people have stood up and you see that's like, hey, you're still in your pajamas. I've done it myself on a few calls. I wake up and it's like, oh crap, I've got 10 minutes until my next meeting. Let's just, quickly do myself up. Let's throw in a jump and let's throw on something nice and, let's just put the pajama bottoms on. No one will see. We're just not going to put the camera down. Or people just don't turn on their cameras and it's great. So these days, it's if you want to do something different with your appearance, if you want to do something kind of, that you've always wanted to try but never really kind of gone for, now's the time. Go for it, right? Like, what's the worst that can happen? You've got a couple of months of the pandemic left before, people will really start, having people go back into offices and work on there. Again, a lot of people already are. That is great. I'm really thrilled for them. For a lot of others, it might still be another year before you're actually full-time back in an office. So go for it. Try out new things. Try out different appearances. See what you like, see what you don't like. Because at the end of the day, if your job is entirely remote and you're working from home, it is really easy to turn around to people and just say, hey, my camera's broken. Not working today. We're going to just do something else. Sorry, can't get my video working. No, tried everything. And you do that little trick where you just like put your thumb over it. It's like you just get a little bit of tape, and there's tons of tricks for being able to fake having camera problems. That is just hilarious out there. I think there's like 50 different YouTube videos by one person, the different tricks that you can use for it. You can try lots and lots of different things. Sorry, I keep reaching down because my cat continues to, try and jump onto my PC because that is what cats do. Yeah, like, go wild with yourself. Do those things that you probably wouldn't have tried before. I had long hair when I was 17, and I cut it at that point, and I never looked back. I'd have like very short hair. I was skinhead for a while. I was, trying different. I had like a full hawk and everything. That was a bad one, by the way. Full hawk was just a bad one for me. There was different things that I tried. There was different things that I did, but I never gone back to long hair until this year because why not? I've really enjoyed it. I've actually really enjoyed having long hair again. I let it down in the evenings, kind of thing. I had to relax a bit. I had to just have a bit of fun with it. So yeah, we are getting pretty late. I'm probably going to be chatting here for another like 5 minutes. So if there's anything that you're curious about or anything that you want to know, please feel free. Throw in the chat. More than happy to kind of keep chatting, kind of thinking about stuff, or even offering career advice. Like I said, I've been in IT for 18 years now. I have actually hired probably close to 100 people thanks to various roles that I've been in. And I've to say I've been around the block is a bit of an understatement. I've worked on 3 different continents. I've worked in so many different countries. I've worked for dozens of different companies at a time, whether it be contractors or via IT services or all sorts of stuff that I have just been able to go out there and see the world and see so many different things. While yes, a lot of my folks in IT, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that anyone might have about any other kind of like career advice kind of things. I've got a lot of gray hairs in here, probably, not as much. If I took off the mask, you can probably see a little bit of gray hairs there. I promise I am not a young boy. I am doing this. I want to practice my public speaking, and this is a great opportunity for me to do that. So please, if you got questions, throw them in the chat. I realize I've got like a grand total of 1 viewer right now, and I love you for that. I love you for sticking around, which is great. Yeah, troll my way. In the meanwhile, it's I'm out of topic to talk about now. I did touch on Make-A-Wish earlier, so funnily enough, there was a softball tournament that I would take part in pretty regularly, and they used to raise a ton of money for Make-A-Wish. It's every year they would auction off these softballs. That's right, I play softball, not baseball. I'm terrible at softball, so that's when the balls are like this big. So expecting me to hit a ball that's like this big would just be impossible for me. So I'm not even gonna go down that route of baseball versus softball. I'm just happy I can hit the ball sometimes. There would be this big softball tournament every year. They would every every year auction off these softballs, so these fairly big balls. They're actually signed by Make-A-Wish kids. And it was so interesting every year to kind of go to these things because it was always at noon, it was always at midday. And you know, if you've ever been at a sports tournament or anything, you know yourself, like, people get really riled up, they get really into the game. You know, these are big, tough, beefy men, and they're getting like really pumped up, you know, getting close fists, and everyone would just be like, no, 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 you just wait till noon, just wait till noon. And these kids, I remember one kid, he was as young as 5 years old, and it would go up to like maybe 12, 13 years old, and they'd tell their stories. And they'd tell of their wishes and what had been granted. And you'd hear them, and you know, cybersecurity? You know what? So Johnny $2, it's, for cybersecurity, it is a very coveted field. It is a fantastic field to get into, and it is going to be a field that's going to be around for a really, really long time. If you just finished your master's in cybersecurity, my advice would be, if you've got flexibility in your life, look for companies that have a 24/7 network operations center, or just an operations center, right? Getting your foot in the door into those kind of operation centers is going to be absolutely critical. They need people to kind of be working around the clock. They need them to monitor their kind of servers and stuff, and they're the jobs that get your foot in the door when you don't necessarily have a lot of experience. And if you're at a stage in your life where you can work a night shift and you don't mind that, you can sleep during the day, and that would be, my absolute advice there. The other piece of advice is, if you can't do that, if you can't necessarily work a night shift or something like that, consider not necessarily going for a cybersecurity role, but a company that will have a cybersecurity team, and looking at the entry roles that they do have. I can tell you right now, I hire an awful lot of people, not necessarily for cybersecurity roles, but I hire a lot of senior people in roles, and I see a lot of people come out of university and college, and they have these degrees. They're fantastic degrees, and it's taught them a lot, but it's not given them any actual real world experience. It becomes incredibly difficult for them to actually be able to see, sometimes you can't teach the different situations that are going to come up, that are going to be incredibly high pressure. You just have to actually live through them. And especially cybersecurity roles, and those are like split-second decisions. People want people with experience. They want people who have been in the field. I mentioned right at the start of the stream that when I started off as a help desk monkey, and I did that, and I was just called pay my dues. You've got to figure out that role that you can pay your dues in, to build up that experience, to build up those stories that you've got for high pressure, for recognizing a threat right away, for stopping a ransomware attack before it actually got going. And so definitely really work that kind of thing. On top of that, if you want to work for companies that are specifically making security products, Sophos, Fortinet, McAfee, Symantec, those kind of companies, like I said, be prepared to go in at entry-level roles for them to be able to get to the department that you want, so they can build up that experience, and then grow from there. Look for the internal roles and figure out their technologies. So many of these companies, Sophos in particular, I know does this. They'll offer a lot of their software actually for free for trials, and you can actually download and install their unified threat management devices. And you can actually set it up. And it's so important. If you're interviewing for a company and you've got time for the interview, try that out. It's really impressive to be able to go into those interviews to say, it's like, hey, you know what, I was actually trying out the software. I downloaded it in my own time. I installed it on my own software. I was checking this out. I configured it this way. And be able to ask those kind of like knowledgeable questions about those roles to show that you've committed time and effort into that for them. Hopefully that information kind of helps a little bit. If you want more specifics about anything, I'm more than happy to kind of go into it. It's a great field. It is a fantastic field. Kudos to you, my man. You are going to have a very, very successful career as long as you're willing to just get your foot in the door somewhere. That is going to be your hardest part, because companies are going to have a hard time not, giving literally the keys to the kingdom to someone who doesn't have experience. So foot in the door is going to be your key thing there. Any kind of questions about that? Any kind of like companies that you've been looking at all? Thankfully in my field I've actually dealt with a lot of those kind of companies. I used to work for Sophos myself as well, so it is an area that I do have a bit of knowledge about. So feel free, if you've got other questions, feel free. I'm happy to kind of chat about them. It's now again, Johnny Tutorial. I don't know where you're based and kind of what IT companies are around there, but now could actually be a really interesting time. A lot of companies are starting to pivot on how they actually employ people. A lot of the entry-level job now switching to be entirely remotely because they're learning that, hey, it's a lot cheaper to make someone else pay for their own internet and us just send them a laptop and a headset and tell them to answer phones from the computer from their bed. Weapons market. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. So I mean, if you're interested in those kind of companies, they probably will have. There's probably quite a lot of people who are probably against those companies. So security is probably a really, really big thing for them. Research the companies that are near you if you want to work for them. Like I said, a lot of companies right now are pivoting to, be willing to give entry-level people work from home jobs because of the pandemic. They're realizing that they don't have to pay for a warehouse-sized place to have people set up with desks and everything when they can just have them work from home. So keep an eye out for companies like that who are doing it. If you want to work for one of those local companies that are by you making those weapons, then take a look at other entry-level technology roles that they might have, because I can guarantee you, if I was the hiring manager at one of those places and someone came into me, even for an entry-level role, who had a master's in cybersecurity, there you go. Look for their entry-level roles. Look for that entry-level job to be able to kind of talk about that. Like any entry-level role into an IT place, I can tell you right now, I would definitely give you an interview for no other reason than you had that master's in cybersecurity. I don't know what else you experienced on your belt. I don't know what you've got. If you've got that, then that means that you're committed. You've done a whole master's course, which means that you can commit to things long term, which is fantastic. It is a great recommendation. And cybersecurity is so important. I would immediately see you as someone I could invest in for the future, to build stuff off of, but I might not have that cybersecurity role right now. Probably would hire you for that entry-level role that I've got, but keep you in my back pocket so that there's security projects that are coming up to bring you in to do that. And as companies grow and they get a dedicated specialist for that, make sure you're there. Make sure you're at the forefront. Like, don't ever just rest on your laurels with it, if that makes sense. Always come in, make recommendations. Don't shove recommendations down people's throats, because a lot of the times it'll be budgetary decisions and things like that. A lot of times it'll be like, no, we don't want to do that, and you drop it. Right? It's you can come into a company and you will have amazing ideas, and you could probably turn them overnight from a completely unsecure, unprotected environment to being able to turn them on their heads and get security ramped up right away. The most common one that I see right now is as simple as multi-factor authentication. So many companies right now are still resisting multi-factor authentication because they don't trust it, or they don't understand it, and they don't like it, and they don't want to force something new and scare out the users, even though it will prevent probably 80% of the ransomware attacks that are happening out there would not happen if MFA was turned on. And I'm not exaggerating that number. If MFA was turned on, it would stop so many attacks, but companies are resistant to it. You could come into a company and you could see that they don't have MFA turned on. And, you know, it's, yeah, you could have that. And when you come in, make the recommendations. Have, if you studied ITIL at all during your master's, you'll be familiar with continual service improvement. Have your own list of recommendations that you would do to improve their security, and constantly be giving those to your manager. But don't shove them down people's throats. Don't harp on them. Don't make them that hill that you're willing to die for to be able to do that. Some advice for that as well. You're applying to places all day, but it feels like you don't know someone at the company to refer you. You just don't get a chance. It's really hard, but it's not impossible. There's little tricks to it that can really help. A lot of companies these days, so first of all, if you can, don't apply through websites like Indeed or LinkedIn or things like that. If you find a company and it actually advertises the company name, go to the company's website and apply through there. Companies have to pay a fee to those other ones if you apply through there. It's not just paying for jobs; they also pay a fee if they actually get more applicants through there. So they actually prefer when you go to the company's website. It also shows that you're not just blindly applying. You might be doing that, but go to that company's website and apply directly on that website itself if they advertise name. But some companies will try and say anonymous, and they don't actually advertise the company name on there. They keep it private for whatever reason. Another really nice thing is a lot of the times companies will actually advertise who their recruiters are on those job applications or on the job websites themselves. They may say the hiring manager is this person or the recruiter is this person. Once you apply, set yourself a timer. Take note of the person, keep them in your back pocket, and you apply for the job. 24 hours later, send a LinkedIn connection to that recruiter. Right? Take the initiative. This is now the modern day version of cover letter. As far as I'm concerned, you find out who the recruiter is, you connect with them on LinkedIn, and you write them a nice connection message. It's the amount of connections I get every day that don't have any messages, that don't have hi, I'm this is why I want to connect with you. And I will just ignore them all day. But if someone ever actually takes the effort to write out a message to say why they're connecting to me, I will 100% connect with them because they took effort and they're giving me a reason why I'm connecting. And you can do the exact same. Most people feel that way. So if you know who the recruiter is or the hiring manager is, you can reach out to them on LinkedIn and you can try and set up a connection. The worst that can happen is they say no or they don't accept your invite. It's not a bad thing. It's not going to make any difference. But it's doing that little trick where it's starting to set you apart, and suddenly you almost take control of the situation. When you're applying for jobs, it feels like so much of the situation is out of your control. Any control you can take back, you also have to realize that you're making life easier on their side, and that's the entire point. They want to hire someone to make their lives easier. That is, every job in a nutshell is you hire someone to make your life easier because you don't want to do something. So if you can already start to show that you're doing that by taking the initiative, you apply on their company website, which means that you've already gone and done research on their website to know about that. You've then connected with their recruiter on LinkedIn and set up an introduction. Once they kind of set up the thing, you say, thank you so much. As I saw your name here, I just wanted to reach out, see if we can talk about the role. I'd love to have a chat with you. Is there any time this week that you'd be free? Now look what you're doing. You're putting the ball in their court. You're almost doing their job for them, which will absolutely get you a phone call. I don't care who you are. If you can build that connection and you can get that first phone call going, they will be impressed. They will want to talk with you because you're someone who's showing initiative. You're going out there. You're making it, and you're scheduling it. You're the one actually setting it up and putting yourself out there. So suddenly it's like they respond back, say it's yeah, absolutely. It's I'd love to do that. 80% of your job is done, right? You've got your foot in the door. got yourself set up with that first screening interview. At that point, now you're in the interview process, and I can do a whole other stream about, just interview techniques and different things like that. So please hit that follow button if you want to follow me about that, and I'm more than happy to give advice about those things. I can guarantee you it makes such a difference just getting your foot in the door, because wherever you are, if you're in one of those towns that's making those weapons, they're probably very manufacturer based. There could be hundreds and hundreds of people applying for every single job, and it's just having that thing to set you apart. Thank you so much for following, by the way. I do really appreciate that. Having that thing to be able to separate you from them is the name of the game in an interview. It is 100% the thing with it. It's set yourself apart, give yourself that edge, and Northeast USA. So I am obviously on the West Coast, but I am in the North. So yeah, you're probably, my geography's not great. I'm not gonna lie. So I'm not gonna pretend like I know exactly what the area is like, but it really, these days, so many people applying for so many different roles. The advice is going to be sound. You need something that sets yourself apart. Another great thing to do is look at your resume. A lot of people kind of put in their resume and they do a lot of details, kind of like describing, things that are their description, and they it feels a lot of the time like on people's resumes, they're giving me a job description, right? And that, and again, hundreds of videos out there on how to do it, hundreds of different things to do it. So many people forget though that it's like a resume is about your accomplishments. It's about like, I did this, and you don't want to say I did this, but you want to put in, performed at the highest level, met all of these requirements. So you want to start them with active verbs, so that when I read that, like when you're applying for roles, typically someone can look at a thing, and I can look at a cashier role, and I'm familiar with that role inherently, and I know what to expect from the job description. I want to know what you did. I want to know what you did to set yourself apart and how you excelled in that role. And that's another thing to set you apart. But try really hard. So many people use Word and they download a template for the resume. Figure out how yours can look different. Just little tweaks, little barriers, little things. Especially if you're working in cybersecurity, like, think about all those info sheets that are out there, right? Like, if you've got the time and the effort and the creativity, and I'm not gonna lie, it does require significant creativity. Anything that you can do to set your resume apart a little bit is key. The trick, which is very, very hard, is almost every big company is going to have recruitment software. So you've got to balance between the recruitment software and and your resume being able to be read by that, and what will set you apart on that. I'm a big fan of, when I see a resume, I like just a name, just a phone number, nothing else. I don't never put your address down there, never put, like, if you want to put your email, that's fine. Chances are I have that, because when you filled out that form, you had to fill out your email. Chances are I have that, like a name, a phone number, your email address can be somewhere else, and then immediately go into, here are my career highlights. Here are some of the things that I have absolutely done. On mine, for example, it's one of the first things I say, because it's so important in IT, is transformed, negative net promoter score from -20 to +80 in 3 months. Don't even put your city. Okay, sorry. This is going to sound terrible. I realize this is going to sound terrible, and I don't mean it to be, but it is just a cold, hard reality. $22, if you have a foreign-sounding name, put your city. If you don't have a foreign-sounding name, you don't need to, right? Let them ask you, it won't be a problem. I hate saying that. I really hate saying that. Yeah. That is a really good way of doing it. That is a fantastic way of doing it, Johnny. Like, so putting your final project on it and a link to the project, yeah, that's a great thing. Don't just don't just think though that people will click on it, right? Because you got to remember, you're a cybersecurity expert. What do they teach you about receiving a random file and clicking on a random link? Probably not a good thing, right? That's good. I'm actually from Dublin, so there you go. I probably actually recognize your name. So, hey, fantastic! I have been there several times. Lovely little area. I will admit, I could drive through there, but they had this fantastic sandwich bar at one point. It wasn't an O'Brien's, but it was a piss take on that name. Amazing sandwiches, especially their double stack. Oh, I could eat that all day. Anyway, you got an Irish name. That's going to be great. You're probably going to sound fine. You probably don't have to put your city on there. Yeah, the reality is so many people apply online, and they're from all over the world, and it can boggle recruiters' minds sometimes to say that hey, I've been in that role and I've had to filter out resumes, and I've had dozens upon dozens upon dozens of kind of ones where I've had to screen through them and been like, you're in India, you're in India, you're in India, you're in China, you're in China, you're in China, you're in Australia, you're in Australia, you're in New Zealand, and it's like you can get fantastic resumes. I'm not discounting any people of the education they have there. I would actually say the Indian education system in IT rivals anywhere else in the world, like no questions asked. But they don't have visas, then they can't work over here, and they can't travel over here, and we don't have payment systems for like those countries. And the reality is, the overhead to hire them is just ridiculous. They're just scratched out right away. The problem is, though, people judge you on the barest of information. You've got an Irish name. Everybody loves the Irish. You're probably pretty safe there. You, at the same time, though, might come across someone who is, when they were a kid, they dated an Irish girl, and they broke their heart, and since then they've hated everyone from Ireland, and they hate St. Patrick's Day, and they're just a nightmare of a being, and they'll look at your Irish name and be like, nope, and they'll throw it away because they've got the barest information. So it can be funny sometimes when you put that information on your resume. I did it as an experiment when I was younger. I wanted to see. So where I grew up, it was a unique part of Dublin where I could technically have two addresses. I lived right on the border, and I could put either address and it'd be fine. And one was an okay part of town. It wasn't anything fancy. It wasn't anything nice. The other side was a fancy part of town. It was a nice part of town. And I basically put it out there. And this was just an experiment. I wasn't actually job hunting at the time or anything, but I basically sent out 20 resumes from both addresses. I just put my addresses on there, and I wanted to see what happens. And I can tell you right now, 10 of the resumes I sent out with the nice address got responses back. 2 of the resumes I sent out with, the okay address got responses back. And there was almost nothing else between them, almost everything else was the same job levels, and it could have just been luck of the draw. It's a very, very small sample size when it comes to those things. The reality is that it's like, yeah, the nice address seemed to get me a lot more responses than the okay address. And it's just that inherent stigma that comes from it. It's people will judge on the barest of details. First impressions matter. Your resume is your first impression. And if you give them stuff to judge, they will judge. I hate saying it, it's a cold, harsh reality though. I try really, really hard to avoid that, but the reality is, by the time resumes get to me, they've already been through 1, if not 2 levels of filtering. So yeah, if you can, again, be careful. If you list a PO box, I'll think you have because I'm more suspicious. I would say just remove your city from it. Let them ask you in that screening call, right? Give them every reason to call you. Don't give them any reasons not to. It could also be a case of maybe you're willing to relocate to a nearby city. If they see the city that you're living in, and they're like, no, they live all the way out there, that'll be too much of a commute. They make those snap judgments for you. They have no idea what your situation is. They don't know if maybe you're moving out to that city next week kind of thing and you just don't have a trusted list yet, don't put it on there. You don't have to. You know, it's if you've got enough of a local sounding name, which if you've got an Irish name, you probably do, then just don't put it on there. Let them call you and let them ask you about it, because that way you're already on the phone with them. And if you're on the phone with them, you just let your charming personality take over, and you got it. Hopefully at some point your dad took you to Kiss the Blarney Stone and you got to get the gab. Fingers crossed for that, mate. Use it in an interview. So yeah, it's tips and tricks for this is do something with your resume that makes it stand out when someone's looking at it, but don't go so crazy that it can't be read by actual machines. Also, make sure you're talking about your accomplishments. If you want to start off right away with what your accomplishments are and your career highlights, especially you just did this big project, you probably have a ton of things to brag about from what you did in that project. Put it in there. I would still caution against putting a link in there unless it is like a very, very easy to read link to, that is very clearly not, anything mission related. I would personally not click on it. That's just my take on it. But each to their own, each way you want to do. It's once you kind of send in the resume, if the job applications also don't apply through Indeed or LinkedIn if you can help it. Go directly to the company website, apply for the role through there, because they will look at those a lot more and it will cost them less than if you go through one of those websites. You can go through a recruiter, absolutely, they are fantastic. People underestimate with job recruiters, they think they can do it all themselves, and it doesn't make sense. A lot of companies will use recruiters, especially in the high volume places that need a lot of turnover. If you can find out what the recruiter's name is at the company you want to apply for, wait 24 hours. Don't just submit a resume and then connect with them. It's that can actually turn people off. Give it 24 hours. They've got a lot on their plate. They've got a lot of stuff coming through, and give them time. They might not connect with you at all. They might. Let them make up their own mind. But if they connect with you, again, wait a little bit, not too long, but wait a couple of hours after they connect, because you don't want to just look like you're hitting refresh your machine the entire day. And then you send them the message. You say, thanks so much for connecting. I was, looking at this role and was really interested. I was hoping we could set up a chat. I'm free all this week. Is anytime that works for you. It's there you go, right? Project red team versus blue team. Hopefully your team won. If it didn't, hopefully you were one of the leaders on your team. Really great things is for that project, think about areas where you showed leadership on the team, right? Think about the things that you don't want to just come across as a loyal, dutiful soldier kind of thing. You want to show how, what if they interviewed every other person who made that project? What sets you apart from them? Why should they hire you versus them? That's interview techniques. I can get another day. So yeah, connect with the recruiter, go through that, reach out and do their job for them, set up the call for them, and you're practically kicking them out the door at that point. When the pandemic is over and people are doing in-person interviews again, a really, really great technique is you finish the call off with, hey, I really enjoyed chatting with you. I feel like I have a lot more I could discuss with you. I'd love a chance to meet you in person if that was possible. And then they have to, they'll probably make something up. If they're impressed, they'll say, it's yeah, no, absolutely, we'll get that set up. If they're hesitant, they now are in that awkward situation. There's tons of studies online about how easy or difficult it is to say no to people. And, if it's in an email, it's really easy to say no. If it's in person, it's really hard to say no to someone. On the phone, it's a medium difficulty. Right? Don't be afraid to put them in that medium difficulty point where if you want to show that initiative, you want to try and break in that door, talk to them and say, it's hey, I'd love to meet you in person. Put the onus on them to have to say no if they're not interested, because they'll find it really hard. And say you didn't do a great job on that phone call, now you put them in a situation where, okay, well, I agreed to meet them in person. I guess I'll in person. Great, you've now got another chance. Or say you did impress them, now you get to build on that. Now you're setting yourself apart and doing those things for that. Like I said, you just finished getting a master's degree in cybersecurity, just did this amazing project that you want to brag about. Customize your resume to really highlight that and brag about that, and what sets you apart for it, and be able to go through that. And then, don't be afraid to start at, get your feet in the door. Don't be afraid to do that and able to work your way up and build up those recommendations for the company you want to work for. I don't care what anybody says. Don't take any job that comes to you unless you just need the money. If you just need the money, take any job you can get, but always be looking. Find a place that you really want to work. Amazing. Look for careers, not just for jobs. I've said that to everyone. I'm not going to go any further into that. That's a whole other story, and that's so dependent on people's life situations. I can't even comment. But do those things to set yourself apart and be willing to take that job in there, because you're going to have to put yourself through an ego check at this point. You have all the knowledge in the world. You have all the training in the world. You have no experience. And what you've just studied for so many years now are literally the keys to the kingdom for so many companies. You not doing a good job is a difference between their company working today and not working tomorrow. And especially if you're in a controversial field, there are so many different threats out there, and it will make a difference. And you've got to appreciate that these companies can put their trust in someone who doesn't have verifiable experience behind them to do that, and you've got to give yourself that ego check to realize that you need that in-person experience to be able to do it. I hope this advice was helpful. I'm going to actually be signing off in just a minute here, but Johnny Chillaws, I am more than happy to keep giving advice. I will probably tailor the next stream that I've got for one of these random things to be more focused around just interviews and interview techniques. I really appreciate people jumping on and doing this. Please check me out next time. We'll definitely be doing more of these. There you go, man. It's 2:30 there. Absolutely get a good night's sleep. Hope you guys enjoyed the content. Please feel free. Put me, ping me, whisper me if you have any kind of things that you want me to chat about. Like I said, I've been in IT 18 years. I've hired over 100 different people. I love what I do, and I love getting people having their foot in the door. Please click a follow. I will be live again tomorrow night, where we will actually be streaming some games. So it's not going to be necessarily focused on this. We're going to be playing some Among Us and then some Little Nightmares. Hopefully you guys don't mind watching Grown Man, cry out fear from those things. But absolutely give me a follow. I will look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great night. Get a good tip, and I will talk to you again soon. Thanks so much, everyone.
just be like a sub will just maybe also someone choosing or them choosing a scary game, not necessarily VR.
Yeah. Oh, Maester.
Wait, what? Oh.
Maester J is rating me. I'm ending my stream. I don't know who you are, but thank you so much. That's so sweet. Aw, I'm gonna go ahead and follow you. I'm ending my stream. I'm so sorry. But I'll go give you a follow. That's so sweet. Hey, how are you? Thank you for rating me.
How'd you?
I'm ending my stream. I'm so sorry. I'll give you a follow though. Were you playing the same game? No, you're fine. Don't worry. That's super sweet.
I love how wholesome Twitch is. Like, holy shit.
I know,
Just warms your
seriously.
heart.
I'm playing the second one. The music is really creeping me out though. Yeah, I'm having a hard time getting through the first one. But